Hey everybody. I'm not great, and today I'd like to do something a little different. I want to talk about something in Elden Ring that a lot of people tend to ignore, and I want to make a case for it. So today I'd like to talk to you about sleep. Sleep is a status effect in Elden Ring, if you didn't know, that puts enemies to sleep. That's what it does. It's right there in the name. And in the beginning, whenever Elden Ring was first launched, there are lots of people who use like sleep arrows on things to knock them out, and it kind of fell out of fashion. And I think that we need to consider bringing it back. Not only bringing it back, but it's something that I'd like to see more of in the DLC. The DLC. So let's start at the beginning. What is the sleep status effect? Um, just like any other status effect, it builds up as a bar on your screen. And whenever that bar is full, you pass out. You're down. You are fully asleep. Now, some enemies are resistant to sleep, and instead of falling full asleep, they'll just kind of doze for a second and then shake their head and go back to trying to murder you. This still gives you a couple of seconds to get some free hits in. It's, not a bad thing. But whenever an enemy goes full asleep, they are completely open for a critical strike. Um, which is just great. Critical strikes are amazing. If you have a build where you regenerate health or FP on a critical strike, that's great. Doing the extra damage, especially to some larger enemies, is also great. There's a lot of practical uses for it. So, how do you get sleep? Well, the first thing that most people tend to gravitate towards is the sleep arrows, like Saint Trina's arrows, or arrows that just have like that you can craft that have the sleep status effect on them. The second most common form of sleep is to use cracked pots with a sleep mixture in them. So you throw the pot, it explodes, and a big pink, purple, magenta cloud of mist. I don't know. It's a cloud of something. It's basically like a cloud of NyQuil. All right. And that also like increases the sleep bar on the enemy or whoever's exposed to it, and whatever's going to happen. Either they'll doze or they'll fall completely asleep. Um, when they fall completely asleep, by the way, you can get the same kind of critical hit on them as you get whenever you dismount a horse riding enemy. So they're just prone on the ground for most like humanoid enemies, and you just drive your sword straight into their stomach. It's very satisfying. Um, the third and final way to get the sleep status effect onto something is to use the Sword of Saint Trina. Now, as far as I know, there is no other way outside of these three things: the arrows and bolts, the pot, and the Sword of Saint Trina. That's it. That's it for sleep, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an Ash of War out there someplace. I don't know. I'm on New Game Plus 2 at this point, and I haven't found anything. So, pre DLC, I'm going to say not incredibly likely that there are other ways to get sleep onto an enemy. Um, Sword of Saint Trina is a straight sword. Um, it's okay as far as damage goes. The big thing is the sleep status effect that's on it. Now, the sleep status effect is on it by default, um, but you can also use the Ash of War to cast a sleep cloud that's just like throwing a pot. And then after that, the sword becomes enchanted for a short period of time where it will give more, like it'll do more sleep to the enemy. It'll glow with this like purple mist on it, and it will increase that sleep bar even faster. So those are the only three ways. And only three is kind of not much for a status effect that was supposed to be kind of, it was a new thing that they were trying out. Um, so what are the use cases for sleep? I'll start off with PvP. In PvP, sleep does not have a lot of use cases. You can use the Sword of Saint Trina, but it's just a straight sword, so it doesn't have a lot of reach. It is a sword that scales with intelligence. Um, So you're better off like having it in your hand, maybe, and then having your scepter in your other hand and casting spells and just trying to throw sleep on somebody in the course of a fight whenever you have an opportunity. But that also means you have to switch over to two-handing it, and me personally, not being a PvP expert, I don't see a lot of a use case um, if you are going against experienced PvPers. Now, if you're just kind of messing around, or if you are on the defensive side and you've been invaded, I can see that it would be a lot of fun to use. If you have the advantage over somebody in PvP, but I wouldn't go into an arena, for example, and throw this down. It's just not a good idea. By the I don't know, maybe in regular new game if you're in like the 150 level range, um, you might be able to get more out of it when people are using more diverse armor sets that may not have a lot of focus defense to protect them from the sleep status effect. I'm only just discovering the sleep status effect in New Game Plus 2. I did a little bit with New Game Plus, but New Game Plus 2, dual wielding the Swords of St. Trina, now that I have a second one that I picked up, both of them are at plus 10. It's a lot different, but also the kind of armors that people are wearing at this point in PvP, they've min-maxed themselves out to wear whatever they want, and a lot of people wear heavy armor sets or armor sets that have a lot of focus defense. So PvP, not a great use option. PvE, on the other hand, is amazing with the sleep status effect. Now there's a couple of like we've already gone over the use cases a little bit, and the arrows are the first thing people generally think of because it lets you use sleep or hit somebody with sleep from a distance, and then you can close up with them. And a lot of enemies, whenever they're asleep, like they're asleep for like a solid 30 seconds. Like, they are asleep for a while. And it gives you enough time to go in and do like your stealth kills and things like that. Um, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the other two, the pots and especially the swords of Saint Trina. Now, I've been experimenting since I picked up my second sword of Saint Trina, and I have found some incredibly useful as well as incredibly hilarious uses for the sword of Saint Trina and the sleep status effect in general. As a general rule, anything that is undead generally cannot be put to sleep. Likewise, anything that is not made of flesh, you will not be able to put to sleep. So your golems can't do it. The little gremlins in the catacombs can't do it. But in zombies and things like that, you can't do it. Um, I've even thrown tons of pots at putrid avatars, and they don't fall asleep either because they don't have a head. You know, you can't fall asleep without a head. I think, I guess, I suppose. And there are other enemies where their resistance to sleep is greater than their resistance to death. So they can fall asleep. You can throw a couple pots at them and they're asleep. You can also go up and one shot them, especially in New Game Plus 2, and they're just dead before the sleep has a chance to even proc. And that's fine. You know, you can still use the sword of St. Trina to kill these things without embarrassing them and putting them to sleep and killing them in their sleep. Totally fine. So the cases I want to make for this are a couple. One, in Caelid. In Caelid, the Dogosaurus, the giant dogs with the tiny front arms, those can be put to sleep. The giant crows, they can be put to sleep. At one point, I came across a mob of flaming. They look like they were undead, but I think they're just like charred bodies of something. They're like almost like mudmen, where they'll grab onto you. They can be put to sleep. So whenever you have a large group of them, if you throw a sleep pod or if you use the Ash of War on the Sword of Saint Trina, you are affecting a wide arc of enemies or a wide group of enemies, and you can put most, if not all of them, to sleep and just execute them on at your whim. You can just take them out. Um, and also, I guess I should mention that the Sword of Saint Trina, the Ash of War, there does not take a lot of FP. It doesn't take much at all. It's very cheap and not super fast, but not super slow either. You have to time it a little bit, but you don't have to focus on timing it a lot. You don't get hyper poise either, but yeah, you can if you have high enough poise, you could just poise your way through it and then put something to sleep. Um, One of my favorite things that I've discovered is one, um, while they can't be put to sleep, Crucible Knights can be made to drowse, which is super helpful. Rune bears are great to put to sleep. Um, Especially if you get inside their attack range and they're executing their, 1, 2, 3 swipes. Just, use that Ash of War on them or throw a pot on the ground right in front of them from underneath them. And whenever they go to sleep, they go to sleep. Um, Mounted enemies, I have discovered, whenever you hit them with that heavy sleep ability, or whenever they fall asleep, like they immediately fall off their horse and their horse immediately dies. You don't have to kill the horse. You can just put them to sleep, and the cloud has a nice vertical reach, so it can reach them up on their horse. And then you can just, drive a sword through them and into the ground once they've fallen down. And their horse is gone. They're asleep on the ground. It's just like you've dismounted them, and you can get in that crit or that finisher just like that. Um, Second most hilarious thing that I found in putting people to sleep are the giant flaming heads that you'll see in Caelid, like the head tanks. So they have the pointed teeth on the front where the mouth is, and they have the flamethrowers everywhere. There's more of them in the world than just in Caelid, but they're the ones you can drop down on top of and get that crit spot. Don't even need to do that. If you can sneak up behind them, it's a little bit easier. But if you throw sleep pots at them, the tank itself, of course, does not fall asleep. It's not a person. It's not capable. It has no nervous system. Does not sleep. The pilot, on the other hand, is highly susceptible to sleep. And watching that tank go from attack mode to just idling while the pilot is in the back just snoring away, you can just walk around and get that critical backstab in, and it's over. It's done. It's pretty funny just to see them go through that mist, and then all of a sudden the tank just stops and just sitting there, kind of cocked off to one side a little bit and kind of like rumbling, like it's idling, and then you go back and the dude's totally asleep and just sword butt. There we go, dead. Um, One thing I have found, and I think I understand why, is that I don't believe you can put crabs to sleep, not the giant crabs. And I think part of this is because the crabs themselves, with their water jet, can actually impart a sleep status effect onto you. That being the case, it's kind of natural that they'd be resistant to falling asleep. I haven't tried bathing them in a dozen like soporific pots or anything, but it doesn't seem worth it, especially since crabs aren't that powerful of an enemy anymore. Crabs have been dethroned by lobsters, and this is where it gets interesting, is especially in PvE, especially in Liurnia, but especially underneath the capital in the subterranean shunning grounds. Lobsters, friends, are very, very vulnerable to sleep. It is without a doubt the best and safest way to kill a lobster is to put it to sleep. And their resistance to sleep is nigh on nothing. Like, I don't think they fall asleep if you just hit them with the swords of Saint Trina once or twice. But if you get them in a sleep cloud, or if you hit them with a couple of sleep arrows, or if you hit them with that Ash of War, they're down. They're down for the count. And sure, they'll wake up after you've hit them and the sleep wears off. But after the sleep wears off, there's the waking up animation where you can continue to stack and like rebuild that sleep meter, and they just go straight back down. Like, just like that. It is embarrassing to take what is notoriously one of the most awful enemies in all of Elden Ring that people will go out of their way to avoid. They will skip items to avoid, and you just put it to sleep and you turn it into a lovely bisque with whatever weapons you have on. Um, just stupendous. This is amazing. So that's my case for sleep. And what I'd like to see in the DLC, and there's been no word of this whatsoever, but in the DLC, we're heading to the Land of Shadow. There, I would love to see a connection. Like, just give me an ash or two of a sleep ability. Like, let me pop that on. Like, let me, give my weapons intelligent scaling based on it, just like you do with Frost, and give us more sleep. Um, but yeah, that's my use case. I hope you found this engaging. If you have an argument against sleep, let me know. If you think that it's not as good as I'm making it out to be, and as my playthrough is showing me now as an intelligent spec kind of warrior spell sword whatever thing, like I'm happy to hear it. But from what I've been seeing, sleep is being slept on, and I think more people should incorporate sleep, especially if you're an intelligence build. You should incorporate more sleep into your PvE, and maybe from this, we'll see more sleep incorporated into PvP as well. Because I think there really is a use case for it. Probably not an offensive use case, but certainly a defensive use case. And yeah, I want to see more done with this. If not in this DLC, if not in this expansion, then in the next one. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of my opinion. And I hope to see you in the playthrough. And even if you're not following the rest of the crap on my channel, I hope to see you in the DLC. And maybe I'll be that guy who gets summoned in to protect somebody that you're invading, and I put your ass to sleep. Here's hoping. So, stay safe and healthy out there. And I do hope you have a good one.